Since 2003, this is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
The Sports Source is presented by Junk Be Gone, Pipe Wrench, and the Garza Law Firm.
The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for today's edition of the Sports Source. We have a lot to get to today. First of all, Tennessee loses its second game of the week against Illinois in Nashville last night. We'll break that down with Mark Pankratz. Where could the Vols go bowling? Well, could be another date with Illinois in Nashville. In football this time around, we'll discuss Tennessee's bowl destinations. We'll talk about the playoff situation that's out there. We'll also talk recruiting and the latest on Legend Bey with Ryan Callahan. Oh, and what about coaching changes? That's on the show too. We got a lot. Let's get into it. First segment of today's program brought to you by Junk Be Gone. Christmas time is here. That means wrapping paper and boxes that will need to go after the holiday, a tree that will need to go, and lots of new stuff to replace the old stuff. And that old stuff, well, it's got to go. Junk Be Gone can help you get rid of all of it. And if you call right now, you'll get 2 free days to load up the dumpster and have them haul it away. Junk Be Gone, you can't beat these folks. I use them every year. You should too. junkbegone.biz to learn more. All right. And whenever you want to learn more, you turn to these 4 gentlemen. We have right here Jimmy Himes. We have Josh Ward. We have former D1 basketball player, former Tennessee assistant coach Mark Pankratz right there. And right down here, Ryan Callahan, who, of course, covers recruiting and so much more for us here at the Sports Source. All right. Number 13, Tennessee fell to number 14, Illinois last night, 75-62. Vols led at half in what was an extremely physical game. But then the second half, Illinois came out ready for business, and the Illini took care of business. Your thoughts, Mark, on Tennessee's third loss in a row?
Well, you got to start with the 2 main guys in Ament and Jacoby. I mean, you're going 3 for 12 from the three-point line. You only get to the free throw line 2 times in a physical game. When you're struggling from shooting the ball from the perimeter, these guys have gotten to the free throw line a bunch in the past, and we didn't get that. And then you look at it, we're becoming easier to guard because we're not getting perimeter jump shooting. I think Boswell showed up going, I think, 2 for 4, 2 for 5. But inside, we're not finishing at the rim. And so we're making the game really hard on us because we're not getting points in the paint, points in fast break. We're not getting as many steals. And so we're having to pound the ball inside and just not finishing like we have against some of the earlier teams.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thoughts?
I didn't think Tennessee played that well on defense. Tennessee had been giving up 38% to opponents, and Illinois shot 48%. Yep. And the thing that was confounding was late in the shot clock, Illinois would find a way to drive it to the basket for a layup, or Tennessee would foul them with like 2 seconds left on the clock. I didn't think Tennessee's defense was where it needed to be. I also think it's a team still trying to find its identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the drive and dish was there for Illinois, and they knocked down shots. Tennessee couldn't do that. Tennessee, I think, went into the season knowing Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Amen are going to have to lead the way in scoring, and that's going to also include lead the way in shooting well. And that's not been there for Tennessee in the last few games. And back to the defensive side, Illinois was going at Nate Amen, getting him in switches, and Rick Barnes acknowledged that after the game. So what we're saying here, Rick Barnes and his coaching staff are aware of, but they've got to get it fixed. And it's difficult when you think long-term because the conversation is about February, March, and you like to think April. What can you get Nate Ament to be? And they're trying to get that figured out. These type of games should help him learn what he needs to be, but that's going to have to happen. We've seen if it doesn't work with Jacoby and Gillespie and Nate Ament, then Tennessee could have real problems offensively.
Yeah, and I think the expectations were ramped up a little high for Ament personally going into the season. I think, Ryan, you can talk to this. I'll throw it to you. But when he signed, number 4 player in the country, I believe, and most of the scouting services and NBA scouts who were talking about this guy being a future lottery pick were saying the first 3 are ready now. The 4th guy is a projection. He's going to be great, but this year is going to be growing pains for him. And I think you're seeing that, and I don't know if everyone expected that. I think there were a lot of people who, once again, expected the 5-star lands, and he's Cameron Boozer. Cameron Boozer is one of those guys who landed and was ready. This is a guy who, good player, maybe a very good player by year's end, but he's not going to carry a team, I don't think. Your thoughts on Ament, where he is and where he was supposed to be?
Yeah,
we talked about this just earlier this week. I was kind of pleasantly surprised by what we'd seen from him because I did think he was going to be a little bit raw, rough around the edges, and just figuring out how to play with the incredible length he has and take advantage of that against tough competition. So I think last night was a little more of an indication of sort of what we're probably going to see more in SEC play, especially as teams figure out how to defend him, what causes problems for him. So I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be a really good player, but to your point, I still wouldn't be surprised if he's more of a guy that doesn't quite carry this team all the time scoring-wise, at least not consistently, but shows you flashes of his immense talent and ends up being a better player in the NBA than maybe what he is here. Well,
you look at college basketball now, the age of these guys, the physicality of these guys. Boozer is physical specimen, right? Is tall and lanky. He's a different type of athleticism. But now when you got a bunch of rosters that are full with juniors and seniors that are 22 years old. You look at Illinois, had a lot of guys from the foreign that have played professionally. They're used to the physicality. It's just a different brand of basketball now. And Rick Pitino called it college basketball is better than it ever has been because of the physicality and the age that Nate mentioned having to go up against.
Overall, you're looking at the last 3 games were their 3 worst shooting games of the season, all in a row. 41%, 41%, and then 36%. Against Kansas, Syracuse, and then Illinois last night. Gillespie, as you said, 6 of 20. Ament, 4 of 14, and he's 6 of 24 on the week with teams challenging him physically. And I have a feeling you saw what Illinois did. It's likely that's what he's going to face the rest of the year, is it not?
Yeah, I would think so. With Ament, and you kind of allude to it, he's not as physically developed as some of the other younger players, and Boozer being a good example. And so they're taking advantage of that. But one of the problems is that if Ament or Gillespie's not hitting, where's your offense going to come from? You had a really good game recently from Jalen Carey, but the consistency from somebody else to step up is not there yet. It may be there, but it's not there yet.
Do you have a solution for that other than it's just growing pains? I mean, what do you do when a guy is young, built the way he's built, and other teams are going to go at him physically? If you're Rick Barnes, I mean, you've heard him say already this year that we knew there would be issues. We knew there would be some growing pains. How long will it take him to get to the point where you think he is ready to deal with a grinding SEC where it is more physical and people are going right at him and challenging him physically? Or is that something that's going to happen in his freshman year because of his build?
Well, you look at a lot of young guys with the athleticism and the talent that he's had. He's been able to get away with having the ability to wait to play defense until his guy gets the ball and then to be able to use his length to be able to bother shots.
Yeah.
Now you can't do that. He's got to play before the catch, so that way he's meeting guys earlier in the lane, so that way they're posting further up outside on the perimeter. He's using the length to bother the catch to make them score outside of their comfort spot. And so he's going to learn. I mean, he's a great kid. He's a learner. He's going to get and watch the film. It's still going to take some time. I mean, we're 3 games in against better talent, and so we've got a 10-day break here until we play Louisville, another really good opponent. I'd expect him to be better prepared for Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be, again, he'll be fine. He's going to be able to adjust, but it's, you're seeing what the kinds of things we expected to see, those kinds of challenges. You knew he was going to face the physicality and all that. And this team, Mark touched on it earlier, they've got to find more consistent inside scoring. They're not getting it inside enough for the way this team is constructed. They've got to be better in the paint.
Yeah, we could talk about Nate all day, but I go back to Jacoby.
Go.
I mean, Jacoby's been the guy that he's succeeded at other levels. He's scored at Maryland. He's been, and he was paid big money to come here and to replace the Zakai's of the world, and he's not performed well in those big games. Like you said, he shot the ball poorly.
Yeah, and 6 of 20 last night.
Yeah, and I think our spacing, because we lack a Chaz, we lack a Connect, we lack another guy on the perimeter that can make plays, it makes it harder for him because nobody's doubled down and nobody's double on the post, nobody's helping off of Nate. They're making him make tough twos.
The problem for him is it's going to be tough if he's expected to score 20 a night I just don't know that he's the guy that's going to do that. There was this belief that you're trading, okay, Zakai would give you the defense every single night. Well, you're not getting that with Gillespie. You're going to get the offense every single. It's a lot easier to bring defense every single night than it is offense. There's going to be nights where you just can't hit the broadside of a barn, and I don't know what you hit on this 5 minutes ago. I don't know what your fallback plans are if you don't have those 2 guys scoring.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it starts. That's where the money starts. Mark mentioned it too. I mean, the investment largely is in Gillespie and Nate Ament to lead the way in what Tennessee is going to be. So there are other guys, like J.P. Estrella is going to be huge for what happens this season with or without him. His health is going to be important. The three big guys of Okpara, Estrella, and Jalen Carey, they need to step up. But the guys that are going to lead throughout the season in scoring are Gillespie, who leads the offense at the point guard position, and Nate Ament.
All right, I'll tell you what, let's move on. When we come back to the next segment, I want to talk about the fact that, I want to talk about the development of this team. That's what we want to get in. Is it ahead of schedule? I would have said yes when they beat Houston. Is it on schedule? Is it behind schedule? Jimmy and I had a little debate yesterday on the Saturday kickoff show. We'll let these guys chime in as well. We'll talk about where this team is. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. One business, one family, 105 years of serving East Tennessee builders, the biggest contractors and first-time do-it-yourselfers. They do them all. They help them all. The Hines family has been helping locals build their dream projects since anyone can remember. Visit A.G. Hines Company in Knoxville, right downtown, or in Blountville if you're in Upper East Tennessee. Check them out, A.G. Hines Company. All right, we got a poll question for you today. Let's go ahead and put that thing up. Your question is, which bowl do you want for the Vols? And your options are the Gator in Jacksonville, Music City in Nashville, Dukes Mayo in Charlotte, Liberty in Memphis, ReliaQuest in Tampa, or Not Going, Don't Care. And it looks like Not Going, Don't Care is your leader. Of course, we always have the negative people that run to the people who are angry always run to the website and vote before we get on the air. Those of you who want to vote now, you can put your smartphone up, click the QR code right underneath that Hearthside Bank logo, and give it a spin.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. No, Not Going, Don't Care. It looks like Jacksonville is next, and not a lot of people saying Nashville, even though I have a feeling you're going to be in Nashville. All right. Let me before we get into where this team is, let me show you some numbers. Ken Pomeroy calls them the four factors, the four stats that really mean the most in terms of winning and losing, and CBB Analytics does the same. And here's how they plot Tennessee in terms of the effective field goal percentage. This is number one. In terms of their own effective field goal percentage, you want to be farther right. And they're a little past the midway mark there. In terms of the effective field goal percentage of their opponents, well, they're right up at the top of the league. As always, let's not flip ahead. Okay, so now we got offensive rebound percentage for and against. So you see the offensive rebound percentage. This was before last night's game. Way over, leading the SEC in that. In terms of opponents and their offensive rebounding, middle of the pack again. Next one, now we can flip it. We seem to have the same, and that's turnover percentage. The title's wrong, which would be my mistake. Turnover percentage in terms of turning it over themselves, you see they are way over at the left. Only Missouri is worse in the SEC. In terms of turning your opponents over, once again, not as high up there as you would normally expect with the Rick Barnes defense. And then we'll flip one more. The fourth factor, free throw attempt rate. And we were talking about getting to the line in that first segment. In terms of free throw attempt rate, you want to be way over to the right where that Texas Longhorn is. You're back toward the back of the pack there. And in terms of your opponent getting the line, you're kind of middle of the pack as well in that one. Okay. Thoughts on where this team is? I know, Mark, I'll start with you. You thought there were some interesting comments from Rick Barnes last night after the game in terms of where this team is developing and how they're developing. The gist for everyone here is, are they ahead of schedule, on schedule, or behind schedule? And I'll let you start that conversation, and if you'd like to get into the Rick Barnes stuff, have at it.
Well, I would say we're behind from the standpoint of I thought our culture would have got us that win against Syracuse. You know, just you go out against Kansas and you don't play well. That's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you see teams. I mean, Purdue got beat by 30.
Especially one night after a big win, a physical win against Houston.
So I expected, you know, but I thought the response at Syracuse was a little bit telling to me about, you know, we've been blessed to have Zakai and Meshack, that culture that just would not let that happen. And that was kind of eye-opening to me. And so that actually makes me feel like we're a little bit behind because I thought we would win that game. Even going and losing to Illinois, it's not the end of the world. Offensively, it's interesting to me about where we're at. And I thought because now this day and age, you can practice basically all summer. These guys have been around a long time. And it's just telling to me that we're still trying to figure out what is our identity. Are we an inside-out team? Are we playing at the rim?
Yeah.
Are we playing through Jacoby? Are we playing through Nate? Like, we're trying to figure out our identity right now. And I thought we'd have a little bit more of that solved at this point in the season.
Rick Barnes made an interesting comment about this team playing the game instead of working the game. Your thoughts on what does that tell you about the way he sees the development of this club?
It's just a finite. Winning at this level is in the details. And if you're just out there playing, right? If Nate is just playing defense, but he's not locked in about playing before the catch, or when we're running play calls, if we're not locked in the proper spacing, or if we're not posting up hard, so now we're catching the ball further out than closer to the block, all those little details add up to losing basketball. And so if you're just, what Barnes said yesterday, if you're just playing the game as opposed to working it, like working for what you want, all of a sudden, that's the difference in winning a couple of these basketball games. Because now you win Syracuse, you're 8-2, it feels a little bit different. You beat Kansas. I mean, it would just feel different if we only had 2 losses. And I just think it comes down to some of those details.
Yeah, see, I went into this season thinking, no Zakai Ziegler, no Santiago Vescovi, no Josiah Jordan-James. This is the first time. You've been in the one-and-done era, the transfer portal era, but you've always had those 3 pillars there to kind of set the culture. I had a feeling without those 3, it may be a little different. You're bringing in all these guys, including this 5-star guy in Nate Ament, that it was going to take a little bit more this year. So I expected, if you had told me before the season, they'll have 2 or 3 non-conference losses, I would go, yeah, okay. What I didn't, so I would have said Saturday, and I did say Saturday yesterday, I think they're a little ahead of schedule because I didn't see them being good enough to beat Houston if you'd asked me that preseason. However, 3 losses in a row, I didn't see that. So I'll say I still think they're on schedule, but I'm a natural skeptic. I'm the guy that said 8-4 in football. So I look at this, and I kind of went into it thinking, here's a team that was ranked 18th in the nation. In some polls, they weren't even ranked. I didn't expect a hit the ground running kind of a thing. Jimmy, you took the opposite path yesterday.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One, I thought not being ranked to being ranked 18th, I thought they were way under-ranked. I thought they should have been ranked higher. I like this roster. I like the team. I like the culture. I like Rick Barnes and all that. And then when they beat Houston, I'm like, told you so. And then when they lost to Syracuse, I'm like, okay. So I saw what they could be, which was the win against Houston and the high ceiling that they could have. And then the last 3 games they haven't played as well. One thing about Kansas I didn't like was when Kansas seized the momentum, Tennessee never could get it back. Mm-hmm. Last night there was a 15-3 run, an 8-0 run, both in the second half, and that put the game away. So when I see that, I'm thinking, which kind of goes back to your point, could Ziegler have stopped that run? Could Meshack have helped stop that run? Could Josiah Jordan-James? Maybe, I don't know. But I think this team is not playing nearly as well as I think it can, and I would submit Houston as proof of that. This team has a high ceiling, but they're not playing very well right now to me, so they're a little bit behind my expectations.
I guess I looked at it, and I think you've lost what amounts to 3 extra coaches on the floor.
Yeah.
Who were guys who, it's one thing for Barnes to say it and preach it. It's another thing to be in the middle of a run, and you've got 3 guys out there who are like, no, this is the way we do it. Either do it or get the heck off the court. And I think you've lost that, and I'm not surprised by that. But still.
And it's different when it's, because you could say, well, Akbar's been there, It's different when it's been guards that handle the basketball, that lead your team. It's just different. Mm-hmm. Yep. But, across the country, teams are having to rebuild their roster every year. But Barnes is a different coach. The accountability and the details of Barnes versus a lot of other coaches is just different. And so having that guy in the locker room that's been there, done that, been in the trenches, and as a guy that handles the basketball, that's just different. And I think you're right. That's a big reason why we're behind right now.
Josh, what's your take? Are they behind schedule, ahead of schedule, on schedule?
Yeah, I would say behind. It is a sport where this time of year we have to remind everybody, good or bad, long way to go. A lot of different things can happen. I do think the floor has probably shown to maybe be lower this year for this team than what we've seen the last couple of seasons, because the last couple of seasons we weren't hearing Rick Barnes many times come out of a game saying, well, we're doing these things in practice, but it's not carrying over to games. I think that comes back to this leadership conversation. And there is a long way to go. Not that much more time until it's conference play. So they need to get these things figured out pretty quickly, because when you get to the SEC play, you're playing a couple games a week. You're playing against really good competition throughout the next 3 months. They have to get it figured out pretty quickly.
And see, this is how I go from being the negative guy to the positive guy. My expectations were lower. So now I look at it, it's like, they're not behind schedule. This is about right. Don't freak out. These guys thought they'd be better, and now they're freaking out. Okay, now, when we come back, I want to talk to Mark Pankratz about what's going on in the SEC, biggest surprises, biggest disappointments. Who's the best team in the league right now? There's surprises when you look at the computer rankings and the NCAA net rankings. It's kind of surprises about who's the top of the league. We'll talk about that. We've still got coaching changes in the football program to talk about, recruiting, bowl destinations, playoff talk, much more. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Elkmont Station. What a spectacular menu. Folks, it's always being updated too. Some recent dishes that they have had on their serving list: gourmet crab cakes, pan-seared redfish, ginger soy glazed halibut. They've even had pumpkin pie creme brulee. Great food, great cocktails. Always just a little something new on the menu. Check it out, ElkmontStationKnox.com. Visit them. You got to get out there this holiday season and see for yourself. Crafty food and drink at Oakmont Station. Okay, take a look at these numbers. What you have in the small print here on the left, Ken Pomeroy, the guru of all numbers basketball guys. That's his rankings right now, the SEC. That was before last night's game, so it'll change a little bit, but not much. And then the NCAA net formula, which is on the right, which of course they use when they set the tournament pairings. You see Tennessee 16th, 19th. They're 4th in the SEC. They're 5th in the SEC. Kind of not a surprise for a team that came into the year 18th and below in terms of the national rankings. But Mark, I want to ask you, looking at that list, biggest surprise in the SEC so far?
Well, I can't even look at the word Vanderbilt without wanting to say curse words after the last couple of weeks. I look at them in Georgia. You know, Georgia's scoring a bunch of points, and so they're not even in that conversation, I don't believe. I think Alabama, the schedule that they're playing, they've got the ability to knock down shots and perimeter. They score. They get up and down. Yeah. They do really good ball screen offense. Now they did lose kind of like their offensive coordinator, got a head job before the season, and so I think they're still trying to figure some things out offensively. But I really like Alabama. Florida, it's hard to continue to pick against them of what Todd Golden's done. And I still think Kentucky, they've had some losses that you've kind of scratched your head about in the way that they've lost. I still think that they're going to be a tough out in this conference, and then obviously come SEC tournament time.
Well, that's the interesting thing about whether this Tennessee team's ahead of schedule, behind schedule, on schedule. It really doesn't matter. Get back to me in February. You know, let's let them continue to grow, and it's who gets hot at the right time of year. So, I mean, Kentucky fans are sitting there right now saying, what's wrong?
Yeah. Well, but when you lose, that brings a lot of things to the forefront, and so all of a sudden you go up against Louisville, and if you don't beat Louisville, that's four in a row, and you're at home. Like all of a sudden, people start worrying about their shots and how they're looking and their draft status. We talked about Nate earlier. Yep. Like that becomes a real issue to try to manage in the locker room, and you don't have that floor leader like you did with Zakai to be able to handle that. Biggest disappointment in the Southeastern Conference this year? It's hard without seeing exactly who these teams have played at times. And, I just think it's so interesting when you look across the country, right? Purdue lost by 30 yesterday. Yes, Auburn lost to Michigan by 30, but, Michigan did that to Gonzaga as well. So, it's hard to think about who is the actual biggest loser in it all.
Well, but it's early. Yeah. You're not putting a tombstone there yet. Yeah. But I'm still interested to see how Oklahoma comes around. I think they've got a solid recruiting base. They're competing with the Texases and the A&Ms. They got a lot more money in them in the portal. But I'm interested to see how Coach Moser does at Oklahoma, if they can get them over that hump. Is there a player or a coach you would say has been disappointing so far? I'm always watching Calipari. I just think it's interesting to see how he can what he can do with Arkansas, and they had a close one versus Duke, but it's interesting to see how he can manage this NIL and the culture of what is needed to win at Arkansas. All right, who's the best team in the SEC, in your opinion?
Right now, it's hard for me to take a pick against Alabama. Okay. I think Alabama's got a lot of good pieces, and the way that they play, that tempo, and Nate does a great job. Those guys compete at a high level, and so I like the fact that Alabama.
And I got to ask you this: so many people know this. They knew Bruce Pearl, they knew Stephen Pearl. You were on the staff, you knew those guys.
Yeah.
Thoughts on how Stephen Pearl has done taking over for his father?
I think from where they're at right now, it's about if you asked me the same question, are they ahead of schedule, behind schedule? I'd say they're about where I thought they would be. Yeah. I think what's going to be interesting with a new coach, it doesn't matter if it's Stephen Pearl and he took over for his dad or any other coach. What happens when adversity hits? And they lost big last night to Arizona, and now how do they handle that adversity and that culture dynamics? Because when you're recruiting these guys in, everybody wants to play, everybody wants the exposure, and it's hard. You talk to coaches across college athletics right now, managing the locker room and the culture and the people around them is really hard. And with Steven not having a lot of experience in doing that, it's just interesting to see how it's going to play out.
I want to give you one announcement here. Give an assist to my top talent scout. I want what's best for you on this show, and of course, that means I have to send people out to find the very best people. And I assigned Mark Pankratz to go find us another top basketball analyst. So starting later this month on our Saturday show and our Sunday show, former Vol coach Buzz Peterson will be joining us. And Mark, thank you for lining that up and getting me in touch with Buzz. Appreciate that. That'll be another good get.
He's a great guy, and we all know him from his coaching experience here.
Ball.
But he knows basketball, and he's still around it every day with his role at North Carolina and in the show. I mean, he'll be great to add to the show.
It'll be good. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week. I believe I'll see you next week. We'll talk about it. I can't remember what we're doing next week. You may see him next week. It may be a couple weeks. Mark Pankratz, thank you very much. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Stink bugs, spiders, even rodents. I like saying the word rodent. All the outdoor critters are looking right now for a nice warm spot to spend their winter. If you prefer they not take up residence in your abode, do what I do. Call Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Matthew Haynes and his family are East Tennessee's absolute best at this. That is a promise from me because I use these folks. SoutheastTermite.com to learn more. No rodents. Okay, let's welcome in the next member of our panel right over here, Bob Hodge, making a short stint with us today because the Vikings have a game. Good to see you. We do want to remind you of the poll, if we could there, and not going don't care, still winning the race. Then you've got Jacksonville with the Gator Bowl. You got people who would love to get to Tampa and the ReliaQuest. And then Nashville's pretty low down the list, which I think is going to be bad news for you. We'll see. Okay. This week, On3's Chris Lowe appeared on the Josh and Swain radio show on 99.1 The Sports Animal.
Very popular.
It's a great show, aside from the main host.
Swain's
good.
Yeah,
Swain's good, but that other guy.
Everybody's got their faults. Yeah.
In terms of, and he had some comments, Chris Lowe made some comments, that were then taken, snipped, twisted, turned, flipped, and put out into social media and YouTube. You tell us what Chris Lowe said about coaching changes on Tennessee staff. Josh Ward.
Yeah, Chris said that he's thought for a few weeks now that there will probably be changes, that there will be some staff changes. He also, in the segment this past week, made it clear he was not talking about one specific person, not even one specific side of the ball. He recognizes there's been a lot of talk about Tim Banks and what could happen there as the defense coordinator moving forward after what happened this past season, but said it could be on offense. You have coaches with contracts that are up at the end of January, so something has to be decided there. But my biggest takeaway from the comments from Chris was that he expects Josh Heupel to self-scout, analyze the program, what went wrong this year, what needs to change within the program. That could be staff, that could be the approach they're taking, what they need to do this offseason, schematic, but self-scouting to figure out what needs to happen to avoid what happened this year and get back to playoff contention and championship contention.
Bob, are changes necessary?
Boy, are changes necessary if, everybody, the big side of the ball is, that everybody talks about is defense. And my argument is, okay, so between 2024 and 2025, they just forgot how to coach.
Yes.
Because that was a really good defense in 2024. So
pretty good in 2023, too.
And in 2023. And so when people talk about are changes needed, I just can't say, yeah, you got to change things because one year where you had two pretty good years. You had one good year, you had one great year. Offensively, yeah, I would make some changes offensively because I think you're stale. And everybody out there is going, he's an idiot because it's defense that needs the changes. I just think your offense has become stale. And against the better teams, your offense has its lesser games. I think defense is more personnel.
I'm pushing back. I'm playing devil's advocate. Don't most offenses have some bad games against the better teams?
Sure, but you're pretty consistent with it.
Okay.
I mean, Tennessee's consistently against the better teams on their schedule. Instead of 34, 38, 39 points, closer to 24, 22, 23.
You still led the SEC in scoring and total offense. And you did change your offense.
Go ahead and start kicking out the ETSUs of the world and all of them.
I have kicked them out.
And what'd you score against Alabama? What'd you score against Vanderbilt?
Let me ask you a question. What they average last year in SEC games? Do you know?
No, I'm sure you do.
25. You know what they average this year?
What?
Well over 30 in SEC games.
Well,
that's
sorry.
Improvement.
I think their offense is stale.
Okay.
I mean, I just sat there and watched what they did in the second halves, especially of big games, and I just thought, okay. I sat there and can text John from the stadium, and a lot of people can do this, but said, okay.
No, I don't like everybody in the stadium texting.
But here comes a bunch of this. And I think if Tennessee doesn't hit big plays, their offense just doesn't work.
I will say, it looked like they were just banging their heads against a wall. Second half Vandy, second half Oklahoma, second half Alabama. But I'm watching Tennessee more closely than I'm watching, say, LSU. How many times?
Sure.
What are Alabama fans saying?
Yeah.
Their offense looked pretty weak in that game last night. So, I mean, I try and make sure I'm using the proper perspective, and it's tough because I'm looking at Tennessee every week with a much closer view than I am other teams.
Say one other thing, and I mean, and this kind of goes to maybe Jimmy's point of what I don't like about it is I don't see a Tennessee offense can go out and go 10, 11, 12 plays with any consistency whatsoever. It's big plays or bust, in my opinion.
And I think that goes to the run game. I don't think they've been as consistent at the line of scrimmage as they thought they would be this year with that offensive line. So they've got to get better return on their investment at some positions, and they need to figure out what the reason for that is. Maybe this looked like their best offensive line on paper, and yet it was their worst running year under Josh Heupel.
Glenn Ellerbe, his contract is up this year, is it not?
Mm-hmm. Highest paid offensive assistant.
And he's friends with Heupel.
Yeah.
Heupel hasn't made a lot of changes on offense.
Nope.
You've had changes on, you've had just people leave. So
he hasn't made changes instead of in terms of firing coaches.
Do you two, and then we'll get to Jimmy, do you guys feel changes are necessary?
I think some are. I think the way the season ended, it's staying status quo. I think sends a bad message to everyone inside your program. I think you setting the standard that a 21-point loss to Vanderbilt on your home field where you weren't even in the game in the second half is acceptable. I don't know. And I think you have to look at that game and see that there were a lot of warts on that team. Now, I don't think every problem you have has to be fixed by a coaching change, but I think there are some things that need to be adjusted.
See, that's my issue. If you've ever I've run marketing departments before, years ago, for example. It's like you don't have a bad ratings book and say, I can't have this set as the precedent. So, sorry, Steve, you're fired.
Yeah,
that's tough. But it's also how that game, the coaching game, is played. Josh, are changes necessary on the staff, in your opinion?
I would say probably so, and I would say you figure that out by examining what went wrong. Were we tough enough this season as a team? If I'm Josh Heupel, were we tough enough? If the answer is no, and the answer is probably no, why not? Who has led the charge in that being the case? There's also the reality of it. The reality, Jimmy, you've covered Tennessee Vanderbilt for a long time. When things go badly against Vanderbilt, especially that way, it's almost forced, right, that there's some kind of change. So I think it's difficult to see Tennessee the last two seasons against what I think is a weaker schedule in the SEC, getting ready for a tougher schedule, tougher in terms of what Texas A&M is about, what LSU is probably going to be about, Auburn, Alabama. You have to be prepared for those teams, and I think Josh Heupel is going to look at it and say everything that we've had is not going to be good enough for what we need to be in the future.
I think the home schedule is the hardest Tennessee will have ever played. At least in the 40 years I've covered.
It's going to be a tough schedule because
It's
then you
gonna
throw
be
in your
hard.
non-conference. It turns out Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and that's
they
a
won't
really
move
good
it out of
team.
Bobby Dodd Stadium apparently.
So I think they need to make changes on defense because you were the worst or next to worst defense in almost every category. Offensively, you were first or second. So I think they need to make change on defense. I'm not saying it's Tim Banks.
We talked about just a hint on. It was a short segment on Saturday kickoff yesterday. Watched the Sports Source Saturday kickoff. Willie Martinez was a name you brought up.
Yeah, and so if you want to defend him, you would say, look at the injuries they've had back there. But the secondary still did not play at the level. I didn't think the safeties played very well. You had a freshman cornerback that got better. But I don't think the secondary has played up to the level that it is needed to typically. And that would be an area that I would look at very strongly.
Well, the McCoy and Gibson injuries were a big deal, and that definitely hurt Tennessee. You had Arion Carter miss some games and play less than 100%. There were factors, but that defense should not have taken that big of a step backward from last year.
You lost a kid that went to Miami that ended up having a really good season at Miami at safety.
Yeah,
which
Thomas.
kind of surprised me. I didn't think when he left it was going to be that big of a hit.
It surprised me. It surprised me he was as good a player as he was here because he grabbed him from MTSU.
Yeah.
Okay. When we come back, does a good recruiting class calm the restless natives? Obviously not the ones on this side. But also, speaking of restless, what's the latest on Legend Bey? We got that. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. You see the website right there, madmarine.com. It's time to start thinking about 2026 and how you'll be spending your spring, your summer, your fall days. How about on an East Tennessee lake in a new or pre-owned boat from Madisonville Marine? Get down to Highway 411 North before the year ends for spectacular deals. Joe Special and his team are the best of the best of the best. That's why there's no better place to buy a boat. Madisonville Marine. All right, let's take a look at the final poll results and what folks said. 53%, if my numbers are off, if my vision's bad, you correct me. 53% say not going, don't care. And then next up is Jacksonville, 29%. How about that? The majority of people who want to go to a bowl game are saying they'd rather go to Jacksonville. And then Tampa, so you want Florida. Then nobody cares about Charlotte or Memphis. And Nashville is what? Is that 2% or 3%?
That is 3.
3% say Nashville. I think you're going to have a happy 3%. But we'll talk more about Tennessee's bowl a little bit later and what we're hearing. You never can tell. Sometimes these things change at the last minute. Ryan, very quickly, just talking recruiting. Tennessee had a really good class this week, finished number 7. But there's always some sort of a but. I'm just going to leave it there and not make a joke. Legend Bey. Back and forth, everybody by now knows that he wanted to go to Ohio State. His mother and his brother wanted him to go to Tennessee. They want the bigger money, which is coming from Tennessee. He turns 18 on Christmas Eve, so he can just jump on the portal immediately anyway. What's the latest on whether or not – is he still wanting out? Is Tennessee just going to give him a release? What's the latest?
I think it's fair to say that he at least still has serious interest in getting out of his letter of intent, or not a letter of intent anymore, is signed papers or entering the transfer portal. But we don't know yet exactly how it's going to play out. I think the thought right now is Tennessee at least had a little bit of runway to see what might happen here. You know, clearly he was committed to Tennessee for a long time before flipping to Ohio State. He saw Tennessee as a good second option, at least, to Ohio State. So can some time and some working on the relationship and just talking about the situation and what it would look like maybe change his view of things. We'll see. You've at least got some time here to figure it out. So I don't think right now there's a ton of optimism that it's going to work out in the end, but there's still some opportunity there for Tennessee to take advantage of the fact that he did sign with them, and you have this sort of, I guess, exclusivity for now until something has to be done. But if nothing changes, there's a very good chance he ends up elsewhere.
And for UT, just release him. It looks bad if you don't. And on this note, I said it on the Saturday show, I'm not a big fan of parents forcing their kids to go to a place.
Correct.
It's bad decision. Anyway, Tennessee with a number 7 class. Obviously, we still got people all over this set saying, changes! So my question, does this good recruiting class, a happy signing day, calm some of the nerves, at least after the Vanderbilt thing, or no? Did it make no difference?
Oh, it most certainly doesn't. I've already had the Butch Jones comparison. Butch Jones had a top 5 class back in
2015.
It was. And what did Butch Jones do with that class? And so the good signing class doesn't matter because now you've got to get a good, highly rated class out of the portal. Whereas if Tennessee had got a good, highly rated class out of the portal, well, their signing class wasn't all that good. So right now, I think people are just are going to be this way right up until about next August. Then they'll change and they'll get more positive about things. But I think until Tennessee plays and wins another football game, not counting in Nashville, I think that's the way people are going to be. But no, it hasn't. The people I talked to, no.
Ryan,
doesn't mean
you're at GoVols247.com. Folks can find you there. What did you guys see in terms of reaction? Was it what you expected? Was it better than you expected? Worse than you expected? Compared to your last top 10, what did you see?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little more excitement about the class, about the way they finished, because they added a few highly ranked guys on signing day. But yeah, I think to that point, just being a few days removed from the Vanderbilt game, I think didn't do them any favors. If this happens a few weeks later after a coaching change or two,
yes,
people feel entirely differently maybe about this class. But because it came 4 days after the Vanderbilt game, people are just not as excited about that because they're still hung up on how bad that looked. And they're thinking also what we heard the most is this really going to change much for next season? Because what they've got to have is 2026 help, not necessarily long-term help. If you're not good next year, it doesn't matter right now.
And so transfer portal becomes an even bigger deal to people who are wanting to see.
Yeah, but the problem is this was not a small. They had a huge class last year. They did it again.
Signed 28, and so they've got room now. The SEC has decided to go to 105 scholarships. You've got room to play with a little bit there, but it's a team that brings back a lot of veterans probably. How much room is there to dramatically change the starting lineup or the two deep? I don't know. So I'm not expecting them to go crazy in the portal. I could see them being a little more aggressive, but I don't think they're going to go out and get 15, 20 guys and end up with a top 10 portal class.
There was even some negativity around Legend Bey.
Yep.
Okay, then why do you go ahead and even sign him? Just tell him to go to Ohio State and be done with it. So right now, almost anything Tennessee does, is people are just not good enough.
Yeah, okay. So that was the question. Is basically, is the recruiting class something that it's smelling salts? It clears the head, and now we're on to a new thing, or is it crushed by the negativity that's still hanging in the atmosphere?
Yes.
And it's crushed by the negativity hanging in the atmosphere as I mix hundreds of metaphors. Okay. When we come back, let's start talking playoffs and then the Tennessee Bowl destination. We got much more to come on the Sports Source. And by the way, no need to flip. Whenever the playoff announcements are made, you will hear them right here. We will give them to you immediately, so you can stick right here and listen to more Tennessee talk instead of, isn't Indiana great? Who wants that? Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Pipe Wrench. When it comes to burst pipes, hot water heater on the fritz, or heating unit that's just not up to snuff anymore, make sure your first call is to Pipe Wrench. Same-day service guaranteed, or the visit is free. PipeWrench.com is where you can find them, or you can call them, 865-433-6916. I'll repeat that, 865-433-6916. PipeWrench.com. I've used these folks. These all the sponsors on my show. I don't talk about them unless I believe in them. PipeWrench.com. Okay. Don't forget, we'll tell you as soon as the playoffs are announced, they're going to go to ESPN. They're going to chat around forever. They do the same thing every year, so we'll tell you when they actually announce it. And we'll also get to Tennessee's bowl destination just a little bit. But I want to talk a couple of things with the playoff and just what a weird situation is. And there's all these different permutations. Most of them tie back to the SEC one way or the other. Alabama, most people feel, will still get in despite the 28-7 poleaxing they took at the hands of Georgia yesterday where they couldn't run the ball. However, they still had to sweat it last night. They don't know they're getting in. Everybody thinks they are, but that was an ugly loss. What kind of a system is it where you have a championship game that means nothing now? It can only hurt you. Carson Beck, congratulations, Georgia. You won it last year and you lost your quarterback. Right. You know they would rather trade that SEC title to have had him ready for the playoffs. Alabama, hey, congratulations. You get to go to this game. Oh, you lose that game? Well, go to bed not knowing if you're in the playoff or not. I think that's a bad situation. I think the whole conference championship game, it doesn't either incorporate them into the playoff or get rid of them altogether. Either make that a play-in and the winner gets in, the loser goes home, or kill them, is my opinion. Thoughts?
I'm going to go with kill them. I mean,
I know there's money involved, and that's why they want to kill them.
But what is Duke celebrating today? That they're going to have a trophy and a banner.
Best 8-5 team in the world.
Best 8-5 team in the world. I just think it's time to do away with those games and see. And I don't like the idea of, okay, 2 teams make it, loser doesn't get to go. See, I don't like that because what if you had...
I would make it a smaller play. I'm saying that's a playoff game.
Oh, make it a playoff game.
Yeah.
Okay, I can agree with that. But no, I'm not too enamored with this system.
Yeah, don't love it. I mean, the playoffs going to get bigger, and that's going to make the other stuff even more pointless. So yeah, it's I still like having the conference championship games. I just don't think there's going to be much incentive to play your best in them and win them. I mean, if you're a team that has legitimate national title hopes, if you're a team like Duke, this is great. Like it makes their season.
You get to play spoiler.
But for Georgia and Alabama, the bigger prize down the road is the only one they really care about, and that's unfortunate. They've made it this way.
If you're a coach with a real shot at the national championship, are you going to want to play in a conference championship game, or would you rather not? Nobody's going to come out and say, "Boy, we want to duck that." We know that, but when they walk into a closet and hide from everybody at night, do you think they're, we don't have to go? I mean, would you want to go play in this thing, or would you rather avoid it if you've got a championship team?
I'd probably want to avoid it more because of the injury part of it. Mm-hmm. I'd be afraid of a quarterback getting hurt. I mean, that'd be it. With what we saw with Georgia, Florida State was left out of a 4-team playoff with their quarterback getting hurt late in the season. But I also watched Indiana really care. They cared about winning the Big Ten title. And Kurt Cignetti and the Hoosiers, they wanted to win the Big Ten outright for the first time in half a century, right?
It's a unique situation.
Yeah. So I would think Duke cares that it won the ACC title. Just it doesn't belong in the playoff. It's not a top 25 team, so you can have your ACC title in a conference that nobody respects and keep it moving. But it's very much mixed. Some do, some don't. Yeah. But the established, like in Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, for them for sure. I don't think the conference championship games mean what they did 5 years ago. Certainly before that.
Well, speaking of the ACC, Clemson won it last year, and that's how they got in the playoff. So it meant something to them. So I would prefer you keep the conference championship games. And there are different levels of, like if Alabama had 3 losses going into it, and they lost again, they would be out. But I don't like penalizing, well, if they were out anyway, because if they had 3 losses, they'd be out anyway. So what I'm saying, if you're already in it, I don't think you should be penalized. But if you've got 3 losses and you made a conference championship and you're not in the top 12, then you shouldn't be in it.
Here's my thought. We're going to have a 16-team playoff in the future, win the conference title game, get a home game in the first round. That fixes it a little bit.
It's not they're not going to get it to a normal scenario where all the conferences have the same team and it's 4 conferences and their winners get the bye. They're not going to do that. So it's just this kind of mishmash, and I don't think there's much incentive. Of course, if you're in the game, you're not going to go out there and say, man, I hope we lose. I get it. If you're in it, you want to win it.
Yeah.
But I think most coaches, if they were honest, would say, I'd rather avoid this stupid game. I guarantee you Georgia fans do not celebrate last year's SEC championship. They would have, if they could trade that for a national championship, they'd say, keep your SEC.
Or a healthy Carson Beck last year.
Well, I do think if you get in it as a conference champion, you ought to be ranked at least a certain level. You shouldn't be ranked 25th and get an automatic bid.
Right. Yeah. The next one that I think is odd goes back to the SEC. This is Vanderbilt. They're on the outside looking in, not getting in, and the committee chair had the nerve last week to say, well, they don't have any good wins, meaning they didn't beat any ranked opponents. That's because they whipped Tennessee so bad it knocked them completely out of the field. What kind of setup is that? To where, congratulations, you really took it to that team that was ranked. Oh, they're not ranked anymore?
Yep.
You don't have any good wins. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
That's ridiculous. Now, if you're the reason they're knocked out, it's ridiculous. If it happened early in the year and that team went on to lose 4 more games.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's totally different.
I'm talking about this specific Vandy, Tennessee.
I understand that. I understand that. So in that situation, it's ridiculous to say, well, you beat them, you knocked them out of the ranking, so you don't have any ranked wins. Yeah, that would not fly. I hope Ivan Mizell on the committee sees through that.
Yeah, that's part of the problem is, especially this year, but in past seasons as well, we've seen embarrassing explanations. Because the Auburn loss against Alabama, Auburn is a non-bowl team with a fired coach, but Alabama gets credit for for a gritty win because it was close against a rival. So, if Vanderbilt had allowed it to be closer until the end, then Diego Pavia runs for a touchdown to walk it off, maybe it's better than beating Tennessee by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, what if they win 38-24 and they don't score the last one to make it 45-24? Is Tennessee still then, did they just fall to number 25? And now, beat your big rival ranked team by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Instead you beat them 3, and you beat up a cream puff. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Agreed? That's silly?
I think it's incredibly silly, and I think it will continue to be silly until the NCAA says, okay, we've got 64 big-time college football programs. The rest of you take your ball and go someplace else and make it more like an NFL system where you win your way in or you don't.
They need to figure out a way to not have administrators making these decisions. Athletic administrators are really bad at making these decisions.
It's called a computer poll.
Yeah.
Just go to the computer ranking and be done with it.
And I think the worst example in the entire thing is Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame gets so much
We'll get
love.
to that in our next segment, and you won't be here. Nice talking to you, Bob. Go watch your stinking Vikings.
I'll call in.
Long time participant, first time caller. All right, when we come back, again, we'll keep you up to date on the playoff selections when they're announced. We've got Tennessee Bowl destination to talk about, but next, a couple more oddities in the NCAA and the playoff situation. We'll talk about those. Come on back. Welcome back. No announcements as of yet with the playoff. We'll get those to you. HardHittingT.com. That's who brings you this segment. Whether you're watching football, basketball, this show, or just hanging out with your buddies, there's no better drink for a Big Orange fan than Al Wilson's Hard Hitting Tea, a legendary drink from a legendary player. Southern tea with just a kiss of apple wine flavor. Hard hitting, but smooth tasting. Visit their website today, hardhittingtea.com. Okay. A couple more interesting little nuggets here before we get to the Tennessee stuff, playoff related, and it all ties back to the SEC, and one of those is Texas. The Longhorns are 9-3, they're not going to get in, and I keep seeing a lot of people saying, well, it's because they lost to Florida. Blame Florida, that's the reason they're not in. No, if they'd lost to Florida and that was just their second loss, I think they're in. I think what you're what you're punishing them for is they went out and played at Ohio State to start the season, and they lost, and now they got 3 losses, and I find that may tick me off more than anything else. Instead of incentivizing teams to go play good quality opponents, you punish them. It's better in this system to play crap like Indiana did all year. And congratulations, they beat Ohio State. That was their 4th good win of the year. Go look at their non-conference schedule. It's shameful. You incentivize the wrong things in this playoff. It's about loss avoidance as opposed to winning games, and I hate that. Your thoughts on Texas probably not getting in because of the Ohio State loss? And you feel free to disagree with me. You guys may see it differently.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Now, Texas had its flaws for sure this season, no doubt. But I totally agree with the point you're making in the Florida-Ohio State conversation. If you flip schedules and non-conference are playing Virginia Tech, like Vandy did, instead of Ohio State, still with the Florida loss, Texas is 10-2 and in. I don't think there's any doubt. Oklahoma played Michigan at home. That's a quality game, by the way. But Michigan at home, I think Texas wins. If Oklahoma goes to Ohio State, Oklahoma loses, then you flip who's in and who's out. By the way, Texas hammered Oklahoma head-to-head. So it's one of the many items on a long list of flaws for trying to figure this out in a 12-team playoff.
Well, I agree with the premise, but I don't agree with Texas because didn't they have to go overtime to beat Kentucky? Didn't they have to go overtime to beat Mississippi State? There were those are 2 of the worst teams in the league. So if they had not done that, if they had handled them like I think they should have if you're a playoff team, then I would agree with it. But I'm 100%.
My point is, I'm using Texas to make a point about playing good non-conference.
I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Yeah.
But just for Texas to say they should be in, I wouldn't go there just because of those 2 SEC games
so
that they struggled to win.
You think Kentucky in overtime is why they're not in rather than the Ohio State
and Mississippi
loss?
State, yeah.
You think at 10?
I think
at
Ohio
10-2,
State losses.
At 10-2, they'd be out because of those.
Yes.
Those 2. I don't. Yeah, because of where Texas was in the preseason.
And the loss to Florida.
Yeah, the loss. I mean, loss to Florida was bad.
Yeah.
And if you're comparing a 10-2 against a 10-2, that comes into play then, but only then. That to your point. I think the fact that they're 9-3 is seen as a disqualification, essentially, in a year like this.
They count losses.
Now, all of this is why we're going to a 16-team playoff at minimum at some point in the near future.
Maybe 24.
And it probably should be 16, to be honest, because these decisions having to be made is kind of stupid when you're trying to decide a national championship.
They never should have gone bigger than 4. That's what I said years ago, and I stick to it. And you've ruined the regular season by doing this, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say 6 to 8, but that's out of the conversation.
Yeah,
they're not going down; they're going up.
We all know what happened in Knoxville when Tennessee lost to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There was an interest drop.
Yeah.
Drop because no, we're not in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. Good night. I'm going home. You've turned it into college basketball, where the tournament is the only thing that matters.
Yep.
And I just think that's a bad mistake. Tell you what, let's go ahead and I was going to throw out one last weird thing because you've got like 4 different things instead of having to wait. Well, this happened in 2022 and this happened in 2022. It's like all these in one year. The other one that's an odd one, in my opinion, Notre Dame is going to get in. Miami is not. They have the same record, and Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head. Again, what matters and what doesn't.
That is the most interesting one to me. Will they put Miami in a final decision here that to allow the ACC in as well? That's the most interesting one to me, assuming Bama stays in.
I think they should, because head-to-head should trump whatever else they're looking at. And not only that, their strength of schedules are rather similar, right? So, I think Miami should go ahead of Notre Dame.
I mean, the eye test in other games matters, and I think that's what they're going by, and maybe shouldn't. But Notre Dame had a close loss to Texas A&M. There's some other games where Notre Dame looked better, and that being a close loss on the road is not penalizing them as much. But head-to-head should matter.
It was at Miami. Maybe it's more impressive to lose close on the road than win close at home in college football 2025.
It's just silly. When we come back, where will the Vols go bowling? We'll tell you what we're hearing. That's next. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Now is the time to make sure you have top flight security system at your home, complete with outdoor cameras. Americans love to shop online. That means deliveries this time of year. Sadly, that can also mean thieves, porch pirates as well. Shut them down with a call to VFL J.J. Surlis and the team at Safety Systems. All right. In terms of Tennessee's bowl situation, we've got a graphic here with some bowl projections that are still up there. These are the most common projections that people have had out there. One is the Gator Bowl against Georgia Tech on ABC right here on Channel 6. That would be Saturday, December 27th, night game. Another one, Music City Bowl in Nashville versus Illinois. That's a 5:30 game on a Tuesday afternoon, ESPN. My guess is it's going to be that one from the folks I've spoken to. And then ReliaQuest in Tampa. I don't see how that's happening, but that's what the ESPN guys were saying that as of this morning versus Iowa. I got to think Texas is in the citrus and Vandy is not going any further than Tampa. So I would be surprised if Tennessee makes Tampa, but who the heck knows? These things can go sideways at the last minute. Mm-hmm. We've seen that happen on this show before when we're breaking it down and word comes down. It's like, whoa, we didn't expect that. I'm thinking Music City versus Illinois, though.
Agree completely.
Agree with that?
Well, you're not going to play Georgia Tech because you're starting the season with them next year.
I was going to ask.
A lot of people are predicting that, though.
And then Iowa, you've just played them several times in bowl games, so
I
don't see that happening either. I think it's Music City.
Yeah, I hope they don't have to play Iowa. It's brutal.
Tired of Iowa.
They at least have a more interesting offense this year.
That would be you complete the trifecta of Florida Bowls, though. You played them in Jacksonville under Butch Jones. You played them in Orlando under Josh Heupel just a couple of years ago, and you'd be playing them in Tampa if that prediction from Mark Schleybaugh and Kyle Bonagura, I think that's his name, that's what they were saying. But again, I just don't see that happening. There are a lot of people thinking the Georgia Tech thing. I see that a lot of projections. That would be an odd one because you'd have one game in between seeing them.
I do know that the landscape has changed with bowls. I get that. Mm-hmm. But I used to call the SEC office every year and ask them about that, and they always tried to stay away from matching them against somebody they're playing non-conference the next year. Yeah. Always tried to do that.
Well, is it the other way around, though? I always remember hearing in the context of because they've played in non-conference in recent memory, that we don't want to pair them up.
Probably
again.
both.
Would they care? They're like, hey, that's not our problem. That's not our bowl game. Let them deal with that.
Well, the SEC lines them up a
Yeah,
lot.
right.
And that's what the SEC office told me.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't
They
seem
don't
ideal
want
to me.
repeat bowl opponents. They don't want somebody you're starting the season with.
Although they do the
next
repeat bowl opponents. We've seen that.
We have. They've kind of been cornered into that.
Yeah, there are times
sometimes.
when that's the problem with having built-in bowl tie-ins, and you're playing the exact same conferences every year. Again, we did this last year, I believe, in a bowl draft, where depending on how much money you spend in, you're paying out as a bowl, you get to pick. And we did it on this show, and everybody thought it was kind of silly. And then we wound up it's like, these are better matchups because you're in different spots. You're saying Tennessee could
it's
go
more
in the
interesting.
you
More
could play the
anticipation.
Pinstripe Bowl against USC.
People get tired of going to the same 7 or 8 bowl games.
Yeah, I think the current conversation often comes back to what fans are trying to avoid. Oh man, I hope we don't see Iowa again. Oh man, we got to go back to the Music City Bowl or whichever one you feel like you just
Is Illinois interesting? You've never played Illinois. I find it more interesting than Iowa.
Like, what would Tennessee fans be more likely to travel to? Jacksonville for whatever game this year, or Yankee Stadium for a random bowl game against whoever? Just because it's a unique place.
New York City at Christmas against I would think they would like that.
So give people the choice of wherever they want to go.
Well, the interesting thing, don't forget, Danny White said a couple of years ago when he moved that game out of Provo, Utah, to get Virginia in here, to get Virginia and Nashville. He said, "Well, it's easier for our fans, just they don't want to travel all that place. They want to travel all that way to Utah and stuff." So. Then he
there were a good amount of fans that were excited about a trip to Provo.
Then he lines up a home and home with Washington. So in other words, that was crap when he said it at the time. It was we don't want to play we don't want to play BYU next year with a new quarterback.
Yeah.
But you look at Illinois. Any interest, do you think, from a fan base because you haven't seen them before, or is it just
not that I'm sensing?
Okay. Let's
better than Iowa.
Yeah, better than Iowa. That doesn't take much.
No, right.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk more about this, and we may have you the playoff predictions if those idiots ever say who's going where. Come on back. And welcome back for the final segment of the Sports Source, brought to you by Games and Things. From stocking stuffers to massive gifts that will never be forgotten. You can go either direction there. Games and Things is the next best place to Santa's workshop when it comes to finding the right gift for your loved one. See for yourself in their showroom at the corner of Kingston Pike and Lovell Road. Anything from dart boards and card sets to poker tables and pool tables, they got it all. Games and Things, because life should be fun. All right. What are we expecting in terms of crowd? Obviously, you'll have more Vol fans in attendance if it is in Nashville, even though everybody's groaning about they don't want to be in the Music City Bowl. Let's turn it around. Let's say you do get Jacksonville. Let's say everything's wrong we're hearing and you're going to Jacksonville. How many Vol fans travel? In your opinion, is it what we've seen in years past or no?
I don't think so.
You got to factor in the economy too.
Yeah.
Because people are, then again, it depends on what network you watch and what party you belong to, whether or not the economy's good or not.
Yeah, it depends on the matchup, I think, in part. If it's an interesting matchup, I don't know if Georgia Tech moves the needle a ton, but I don't know. There's some people that go to bowl games often and would probably find that as an appealing trip because you haven't been back in 6 years or so now, but I don't think it would be nearly as many, and I think that's going to be the case for all these bowl games across the board, just not as much interest. Tennessee would travel better than a lot of fan bases, but still not incredibly well.
And the word came down just a few minutes ago. You've actually had Iowa State said they've lost their coach to Penn State, but they said, yeah, we're not going to a bowl. Yep. And Kansas State said, yeah, we're not going to a bowl. They'd rather be fined by their conference than go to a bowl game, which tells you about how the bowls rank now in our playoff world. Do you think you'll have a massive crowd? I think by the time you got to the Music City Bowl, people will have said, oh, well, heck, I'll just go over there. I think you'll have a good crowd from Tennessee if it's in Nashville.
I think you'll have a really big crowd because a lot of people in Nashville that don't get a chance to watch Tennessee play, a lot of people in Jackson, Tennessee that don't get a chance to watch them.
Easier for the West Tennessee people to come all the way over, too.
Right. So I think you'll have a huge crowd there. As far as Jacksonville, maybe a few thousand, but nothing like you've had in the past.
Yeah, I remember when you first had you had that Jacksonville trip under Butch Jones against Iowa, and they turned out like crazy.
Then impromptu Vol walk.
Yeah, that's
in
right.
the parking lot, which was amazing to see how many people were there.
That was after Tennessee had not made a bowl game for a few years, I think, and that much different
They were
situation.
Hungry. Yeah. Do you think Danny, I mean, what do you think was number one on their list? Music City or Jacksonville?
I think
in terms of Tennessee,
Tampa.
1, 2, 3.
I think Tampa. And then after that, probably Nashville.
Should have just put the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, not getting it.
But no, I mean, there was a scenario where it could have worked out.
Well, you'd have had to have a whole lot of teams make the.
Beating Vanderbilt was important there. Vanderbilt and Tampa was very much important.
Yeah, you'd have needed a 6th SEC team in the playoff, I think, and move everybody up to have gotten that. But Music City or Jacksonville, which do you think they put Tennessee requested first? Because you rank 1, 2, 3, you turn in the ones you want.
Yeah. That's a good call. I could see them leaning Nashville on that one just because of the ease of that. You don't have to
Ticket
worry
sales
about.
probably cost them less
Yeah.
to just drive over.
Yep.
Nashville, you think?
I think so, because of what you just said. Ticket sales, less expensive to go over there.
Yeah, easier.
Yeah.
And Jacksonville is not the most exciting city in Florida that people prefer to travel to. If you had to
It's
pick,
not Tampa or Orlando.
Yeah.
I think in
I
terms
was
of
down there a
building.
few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. not a bad town.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
it's
It's not Tampa. It's not Miami.
it's not Disney
Duval.
World. All right. Very good. Thanks to all these guys for being on here. Thanks for you for watching. They've announced the top 4, have they?
Top 4, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, and Texas Tech 4, with Indiana, of course, being number 1.
Yeah. So
Oregon
there you
number
go.
5.
Oregon number 5. Okay. Well, sorry we didn't get that in for you. Blame Reese Davis and ESPN. We will see you next Saturday, Sports Source Saturday kickoff. See you next Sunday. This guy's hosting, so it's guaranteed to be a much better show than when I'm here. Tune in next Sunday and catch Josh and the gang. See you then.